Hello everyone, my name is Bridget and I have a very exciting video for you today because it's a topic that I love and I haven't talked about in a while, and I have some really rich updates for you, particularly around how to work with, how to activate the Earth's body, the meridian points, the chakra points, the vortices of the planet, and thus in that process understand and work with more of your spiritual sacred nature, as well as how we can work with these energies to also bring healing and harmony to the planet and humanity at the same time. So there's a lot going on here and I'm really excited to dive in, so let's get started. So to understand our connection to all of this, we need to first begin with understanding that the Earth, our mother, is a living being, and like us, or more so like her, she has these different energy currents and life pulse temples and sacred sites around her body, just like we have ourselves, because we are actually living microcosms of the planet, of Earth. And this is very important to understand as we start to interact with these different sites and these different energies of the Earth, so that we can really begin to realize that we're connected, that our natures are the same. And from that place, we can understand our impact and also our positive or negative influence in this dance, in this dynamic with each other. So I want to pop in here and say, if you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell button. Now, long form content on YouTube ain't doing well in the algorithm anymore. It's all about the shorts. So if you enjoy connecting with me, please go down below and get a free soul embodiment meditation and be connected through my mailing list so that we can truly stay connected in these times here in the digital world. So let's dive right into the juice then of how we can activate these meridians, how we can nourish and help cultivate these different energy lines of the Earth, and thus with ourselves, because whatever is happening within us is happening on the Earth and vice versa. And this came through a call that I had recently, and it just clicked on a bell. And I've heard this in many different ways in the past through Dan Winter, and there was something that just anchored it deeper in me, and I just feel very compelled to share so that you can start working with this in these ways as well. So what came through on the call, and I'm just going to read it here, is that the meridians of the Earth only activate when the people stewarding them or living on them are aligned with the principles. What? That means inherently that we have a big impact on the Earth, and not just with dumping, petroleum into the oceans or whatnot. Yes, on those physical levels, but on these energetic levels have profound impact as well, these spiritual levels. So I want to unpack this with you and start to dissect what this really actually means. And I'm going to read it one more time so you can take it in, which is that the meridians of the Earth, which are all the different sacred sites, the pulse, life force, the different chakra points, the vortices, that which is vibrantly alive in the Earth, only activates when the people stewarding it or living in those places are aligned with the principles. Amazing. And I personally love this when I can just get really connected to exactly, like an exact pinpoint alignment of what then I can do. That's very, very helpful. It's not ambiguous and there's not a bunch of fluff to it. It just cuts straight to the chase, and I personally love that. So now let's unpack some of the definitions so that you can be really clear, so we can be really clear on this, okay? So I want to talk about principle a little bit first from Dan Winter's perspective and the spiritual scientists, which is talking about pure principle, which is a shareable wave of coherence, aligned with mind, body, spirit, and soul. So we're in such alignment with truth that it is then shareable, that it then is connected to. It can merge with other people, with life, with nature, and it's connected to oneness. And so it really connects versus divides. So that can be one example of what this principle can look like. And the work that he's done is incredible. Maybe we can get on a call and have a full conversation about this because it's worth it. And he came to this through spiritual science, through a bunch of testing, through his work with indigenous peoples. I mean, this is what it comes down to. And the people that I'm working with are saying and experiencing the same things because they hold and remember these technologies, these spiritual sciences that are sustaining our planet alive, okay? So part of this is remembering to also inherently in this treat ourselves as sacred, right? So that idea that we, our bodies, our consciousness is a sacred temple. And so how would we treat a sacred temple? Do we want to go like pour a bunch of bad physical things or energetic influences into it? Probably not. But those are things that are swirling in our world. And so how can we continue to be precisely aligned with those energies and the sacredness of ourselves so that that is the thing that is then naturally emanating from us wherever we are in our selective location? This is another thing that I want to clarify, is that we think in especially the New Age world of sacred sites being the pyramids of Egypt or these certain sacred places that we've heard of, on a map. And I put some of them on maps, in the past. And so that's partly me and a bunch of other people talking about them for a long time. And it's so much more than that. And it's so much more nuanced than that. And every territory, every place on the planet has its own purpose, has its own life force. And so wherever you live is sacred and it has its purpose. And so it really just comes down to the listening of what that is for the particular place where you live. And that is part of getting into these principles. So from the tradition that I am working with, they would define these principles through two foundational pillars: reciprocity and complementarity. Those are the principles. I did a whole podcast exploring just these two principles so that you can really start to get a feel for it, because it's something that is not lived in our world very much and is very much so a working practice for me, and so that we can really dive into it. So I really suggest, if you're feeling this, to go check out that podcast on my Wild and Awake podcast down below so that you can dive into this. But just to begin, this is a working definition that I'm working with based on indigenous definitions that I've found, a bunch of different things that I've put together over the past years. So you can begin to get to know what this principle is and start to feel it in your body and start to live it, because then when we're living it, then all of the life pulse flow of the earth and thus in us starts to really move and be in harmony. So this definition of reciprocity is the flow of connection and interdependence. It is the act of giving and receiving equal measure based on mutual honoring, understanding, and benefit. It is expressed through acts of generosity on all levels that fosters community bonds and ensures the benefit of all. It's very beautiful. So when that's happening, energy flows. I mean, that's what it is. Like reciprocity is like flow here, flow there, flow here, flow there. An equal energy flow of giving and receiving, And so you can start to feel that with each other, with the relationships in your life, with you and the different dynamics that you have with nature or the things that you're creating. And of course, then the earth starts to have that ebb and flow. And then all of a sudden, when you get a disruption and someone wants to put up a giant wall, whether that's physical or metaphorical, or starts dropping bombs over here, and then there's war, that starts to break this flow. And then those meridians, those energies don't flow anymore. And we do this in our own bodies, in our own lives as well, when we have different traumatic experiences, or we have different experiences that make us more walled up, right? We're blocking those energy channels in our own body, and thus the flow of reciprocity. So when we start to move with this energy, we start to live from this energy and live from this space, it actually creates peace. And it first creates inner peace, and then it creates outward peace on all of the different levels. Now, this is an individual thing that's happening within you, that's happening within the earth, but it's something that's then happening within the community, within the culture where you live, within the territory within you where you live. And so obviously there's a lot of work to be done here. And this looks a lot different than the New Age cultural portrayal that we see, and partly that I helped propagate in a small way, that going around and say just gridding or merging yourself with certain sacred sites, like that is the thing that's helping them or helping the planet or whatnot. This is an advanced level. This is the level that really requires a lot of personal accountability and responsibility of how we're treating ourselves, of how we're treating other people, and of us needing to continue to return to listen very humbly. And I have learned this in hard ways and in gentle ways, that we need to really return and listen to what nature is saying, to what our nature is saying, to what the earth where we are is saying, and tread lightly and just be in this reverent honor of that space and of ourselves, to really return and remember the purposes of all of these different places and sites, to activate and move and nourish and foster the flow of these different spaces on earth and within ourselves. And I'm going to get to the complementarity definition here in a second too. I'm jumping all over the place because these things are important and I want to weave them in and empower your words, your thoughts, your actions when you're with other people, when you're with yourself, of what are you feeding? What are you seeding? Are you feeding and seeding connection or separation, right? Coldness, block, or warmth and flow. And there's time for boundaries, and we have that. And I talk about that in my latest podcast episode. By the way, now this is a long video. I can't do short YouTube videos, which is fine because all of this needs to be said. And when I really want to go as long as I want to, I go onto my podcast. And so there's a lot of podcast episodes that are there that are not on YouTube, because I want to really massage and work in all of the different components, because all these pieces are very nuanced and important to get the full picture. So where we can really begin, that will make it a lot easier than flying halfway around the world or waiting until you can go to a sacred site, is to begin to know the territory and the place where you live, and to listen to it, and to begin to honor it, and to begin to understand what its purpose is, and how you can be a steward of that particular space of nature and that particular energy flow, and how you can then walk those paths and breathe that air and be in harmony, or become more in harmony with that place. And that is going to be actually more impactful than any grid work, any merging with an ancient stone. And it's very simple, and so it doesn't have that glamorized feeling to it. It might not create the most majestic Instagram picture, but it is real, and it is humble, and that's something that I've been moving towards for quite a few years now, and it's a process. And for sure, follow whatever excitement and energy that you have and what feels aligned to your inner listening. This is where my inner listening and the wisdom that I have received is moving me towards, and I just, again, feel like it's my duty and responsibility to make sure to pass that along, since there's a lot of ways in which interacting that I myself seeded here, and that was coming from more of a naive maiden self, long time ago, 10 plus 15 years ago. And these are some of the updates that I feel will be even more enriching and empowering and powerful and aligned for you and your soul, and also this next stage of where we're going with humanity, because there's a lot of balance needed in nature. There's a lot of balance needed in humanity, and there's a lot of balance needed in us. And so I'm going to say it. And as far as complementarity, the definition for this one was tricky because it doesn't really exist. That's defined and typed online. And so the way that I would look at it is it's that which builds up, that which enhances, that which edifies something else and enhances that other thing. And so it makes it better, and it makes it better towards its soul self. So someone that wants the best for you, and someone that can complement, and it's not with the I, it's complement with the E, but enhance each other. And a quick example that I have of this is improv, and there's an improv game called Yes and so if you're bad at playing the game, someone says, "Oh my gosh, did you see that shooting star? It looked like a firework." And then the person goes, "No, I didn't see the shooting star," in this spontaneous game of humor. And it's wah, 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 just kind of like bring it down, the fire goes out. But in complementarity and in this game, for instance, you're building the fire together. You're adding logs to the fire to make it stronger and more enhanced. And so then in that game, someone would say, "Oh my gosh, yes, I forgot it's the 4th of July. Did you bring the popcorn? And are you wearing red, white, and blue?" Or something like that, right? They would add to this spontaneous game and complement it. So it's building the fire together. And so this is what we are being asked to do in relationships, is how can we build each other up? And this isn't just being nice or placating or people pleasing or anything like that. It's actually calling forth the greatest version of that other person, which doesn't have to be serious all the time. Sometimes it does, but it is something that just uplifts very naturally and is very supportive. So that's a beginning definition of complementarity. I talk about it more again in the podcast. So again, these are two of the principles, and then some other ways of looking at principle that we can begin to explore within ourselves. And I would love to hear down below what you're feeling about all this, what you're thinking about this, because in some sense it's hot off the press, and in other senses it's been around since the beginning, since the origins, and we're just remembering and rekindling this because there's been a lot of movement on this body of the mother, and there's peoples that have gone to places that maybe we shouldn't have gone to. And because of that, there's a lot of forgetfulness. And so we're learning how to listen. We're learning how to remember. We're learning how to restore again. And that is okay. It's a process. And this is a beginning of where we can start. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really love it and appreciate it. I've been away. I've been busy doing other things in my physical life, but I do love coming on here and sharing with you. And also I feel like these things are very important, especially for these times. And so I want to continue to do that. So again, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and that really actually doesn't even do anything now. So be sure to go down below and get my newsletter so that you can be a part of that. There's a bunch of free goodies with that, but then we can really stay connected because I got some pretty interesting things going on. And I would love to continue to be connected to you and share and support your journey. So sending you lots of love until next time.